Hello, welcome to Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 3 Empirical Approach, and our topic is Managing Diversities in Social Science Research. While collecting data for sociological research, we need to recognize that the diversities have to be both accepted and also explained in terms of the meanings they express. Social science observations are time consuming and require painstaking sincerity in recording data. There is no shortcut if one wants to get a real understanding of social phenomena. For all such phenomena are complex and have multiple causations and effects. As Homswood and Stewart explain it, when explanations in the social sciences become problematic, one has to accept rather than ignore or reject them. Moreover, the search for a perfect explanation is also illusory, and one has to accept that the human beings are creative and have freedom of expression. This is again not to say that no regularities can be observed or no generalizations can be made. For if this were so, there would be no social science possible. The social scientists often tread a delicate balance between the regularities that are real and those that we would wish to impress upon one's data. This is the classical duality between structure and action that has to be faced in social sciences. You can argue that the wider the applicability of our generalization, the more we lose out on ground level explanations of particular events. The general often remains an essential condition for explanation of the specific. There is still another problem that empirical observations and interpretations have to deal with. What do we do when certain things that seem to be lie beyond our own sensory perceptions appear to be well within the sensory perceptions of others, or at least that is what they claim? How do we interpret it when we are told in the field by our informants that they see spirits on a regular basis, or they converse with the dead as they converse with the living, or that they have spouses and children in the other world with whom they communicate all the time? Let us see Sora example. The Soras, a tribe in Orissa, do not observe a division between the dead and the living. According to them, the dead have simply gone to live in another place, quite near to their own place of residence. They meet on a regular basis and converse. To the Soras, this poses no problem, and they often talk about a person they had met while gone to the field or to the market. But the only problem for the social scientist would be that the person is long dead. They also have their spouses and children in the spirit world with whom they keep in constant touch. How does one explain Sora's example given above? If one should follow the scientific rationality of relying only on one's sense, then only way to explain this would be to either say that everyone in that culture is suffering from the hallucination or is speaking lie. Another way to explain this could be that people of different cultures have different cognitive abilities and can actually see things that we cannot. This would be something like the work of Castanda that went beyond the credulity of many but was also accepted by many others. A third way to explain it would be that there are culturally learnt mechanisms of deriving meanings from some optical and other sensory perceptions that elude us. For example, while working with a mountain community, I was told that when a person was about to die, a lama was called in to observe the passage of escape of the soul from the body. I asked the obvious question as to how did a lama observe such a phenomena, and was answered by equal incredulity as to why should he not. Thus, what is incredulous to us may be very obvious and commonplace to another. But if it stretches the limits of our credibility, then what is to be done? Ivan Pichard, on the other hand, explained the phenomena of witchcrafts among the Azande by reducing the entire experience to a positivist one and subjected it to a rational positivist functional analysis. Here he ignored the apparent subjective experience of the actors and concentrated on the overt or even covert functions that were performed by the experiences. He took them as given conditions without comments. To the analyst, it does not matter what the Azade felt emotionally or experientially about witchcrafts. The analyst focused on the role that the witchcraft played in maintaining the social order. In yet some other cases, the analyst may concentrate on the meanings that these experiences have for the actors and then integrate the individual experiences into webs of significance. This is the approach taken by the Gertz, but most scientists have skirted the issue of truth of the experiences and of the seeing and the experiencing of the actors. Some more recent scholars have not shrinked the issue of sharing in the experience of the actors in the field situation. For example, in one instance, Sachs, who participated in the performance of the Pandavas Leela in Garhwal, recounts being transported into an other than ordinary experience. While participating in the dance, one more dimension about the study of culture is the relative importance of the verbalized behavior and the non-verbal one. Scholars of culture have often equated culture with language, prioritizing the verbal over the non-verbal, by the logic that the human beings are more into verbal communication and that non-verbal behavior, being more neutral, is in the realm of animal rather than human behavior. Yet another category of scholars, such as Ingold and Gell, has looked upon culture as a way of engaging with the world, and the manner of this engagement is a dialectic relationship with the environment. Human beings engage with their environment, forming their own interpretations as a result of this interaction and not the other way round. In other words, we do not always interact with the culturally created environment of meanings, but that our physical interactions that are natural to begin with imbue the environment with meaning that they becomes transcribed into it. Such meanings, in the absence of written records, may be only partly passed down and partly recreated each time an individual engages with his or her environment. Thus, a child born into a hunter-gatherer group learns about the environment by walking in the forest, by trying to satisfy hunger by plucking fruits and catching animals and trying to survive and find its way around. An illustration of such a work is Nisa, the life and words of a IGNOU woman, which deals with the real life of a hunter-gatherer woman who lived in the bush, and that was recorded by the Shotek. The lengthy section on managing diversities in the social research takes us to the subject of understanding the basic goal of one's research. Let us discuss this issue in the next section or discussion. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with a self-learning podcast.